The most important government on earth wanted him gone. His own family demanded he walked away, and the woman he loved was the reason they all turned against him. He was a king without a throne, a man sent into exile for the simple act of choosing love. But here is what they did not expect. He came back, and when he did, he built one of the greatest nations in the history of Africa. Stay with me, because the full story of what happened has never been told like this before. His name was Seretse Khama. He was born on the 1st of July, 1921. He was born in Sarawe. Sarawe was the capital village of the Bangwatu people. It is in what is today central Botswana. His father was Segoma Khama II. Segoma was the paramount chief of the Bangwat. His mother was Queen Tebogo. His grandfather was legendary Khama III. Khama III was one of the most respected rulers in all of Southern Africa. He spent decades bringing people together. He died in 1923. Seretse was barely 2 years old. The name Seretse comes from the Setswana language. It means smart, but as a name, it carried something deeper. It referred to the clay that binds, the substance that holds things together. That name was not chosen by accident. Seretse was born during a time of tension inside the royal family. His name was a declaration of hope. It honored peace between his father and grandfather. That peace confirmed Seretse as the rightful heir. When Seretse was only 4 years old, his father, Segoma, died. His mother, Tebogo, passed away in 1930. Before age 10, the boy had lost both parents. His uncle, Tshisekedi Khama, stepped forward. Tshisekedi became both regent and guardian. He managed the affairs of the Bangwatu people until Seretse was old enough to lead. But the path ahead would be harder than anyone imagined. Seretse Khama had a sharp mind, and those responsible for him understood this. A great mind needed a great education. He was sent to boarding schools in South Africa. He attended Lovedale, a respected mission school. He then attended Tiger Clough. Both schools gave him a strong foundation. He also became a strong athlete. He developed discipline and confidence. These qualities defined his leadership later. In 1944, he graduated from Fort Hare University. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree. Fort Hare was no ordinary place. It was one of the most important schools in Africa. Nelson Mandela of South Africa studied there. Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe studied there. Joseph Lule of Uganda was also a graduate. Seretse joined a group of men who would shape the continent. After Fort Hare, Seretse continued his studies. He studied law at the University of Witwatersrand. Then he traveled to England. He enrolled at Balliol College in Oxford. In 1946, he began legal training in London. He studied at the Inner Temple. It is one of the most respected legal institutions in Britain. Seretse Khama was preparing himself for leadership. He had the royal bloodline. He had the education. He had the discipline and the intelligence. What no one expected was what happened next. And when it happened, it could change the course of an entire nation. It was in 1947. Seretse Khama was in London studying law. One evening, he attended a dance at Nortford House. The event was organized by the London Missionary Society. A woman was introduced to him that night. Her name was Ruth Williams. Ruth was born on the 9th of December 1923. She was from the Blackheath in southeast London. She was the daughter of George and Dorothy Williams. Her sister brought her to the event that evening. Ruth was building a career in finance. She worked as a clerk at Lloyd's of London. Seretse and Ruth began to spend time together. Over the course of a year, friendship became love. In 1949, they made a life-changing decision. They married quietly without the knowledge of the family of Seretse. When the news reached the family, the reaction was strong. His uncle, Seretse Khama, was furious. He demanded Seretse return home and end the marriage. But when Seretse and Ruth arrived in Botswana, something remarkable happened. The Bangwatu people welcomed Ruth with open arms. They gave her the title of the queen. The people had spoken. Because the Bangwatu accepted Ruth, they resisted Sekedi when he tried to remove Seretse. Sekedi could not win the argument. He left for self-imposed exile. In 1949, the elders confirmed Seretse as their chief. On the 15th of May 1950, Ruth gave birth to their first child, a daughter named Jacqueline Tibego Khama. The family was building life together in Lombatse. But peace would not last because there were forces watching from across the border. And what they decided to do next was something nobody could have predicted. The apartheid government of South Africa had been watching, and they were deeply uncomfortable. Under apartheid, marriages between different races were banned. A black African chief married to a white English woman living just across the border was a direct challenge to everything apartheid stood for. South Africa put pressure on the British government. Rhodesia, now known as Zimbabwe, added its own pressure. Both countries were governed by white minorities. Both wanted Seretse removed as chief. The British government looked for a way to act. They launched an investigation into whether Seretse was fit to rule. The investigation found Seretse fully qualified. He was completely suitable to lead his people. But the British government buried that report. It was kept secret for 30 years. Now, think about what that means. The British government knew the truth. They had the evidence in their hands and they hid it. Britain knew that South Africa held gold and uranium. These resources were important to Britain after World War II. There was also fear of aggression against Botswana, the territory that became Botswana. In 1950, Seretse and Ruth were banned from returning. In 1951, Britain removed him as chief and sent him into exile. The world was watching and the world was angry. But what happened next showed something that power rarely expects. It showed what ordinary people can do when they refuse to accept injustice. The response to the exile of Seretse was powerful. Organizations across Britain and around the world protested. Many people in Britain saw this as racism. Their own government was punishing an innocent man to satisfy the demands of the apartheid government. Lord Salisbury, the minister in charge, was called upon to resign. The decision was widely condemned across Britain. Back in Botswana land, the Bangwatu refused to cooperate. When the British ordered them to choose a new chief, they refused. They called for the return of Seretse. They sent 6 elders all the way to London to speak directly to Lord Salisbury. 6 men traveling across the world to fight for the man who was their leader. That is what loyalty looks like. Years of pressure and negotiation followed. Eventually, both Seretse and Tshisekedi were required to sign agreements with Britain. They promised to give up their claims to the chieftainship. In 1956, the door finally opened. Seretse and Ruth were permitted to return to Botswana, not as royalty, but as private citizens. They returned with their family. A son named Ian had been born on the 27th of February 1953. He was now 3 years old. In 1958, Ruth gave birth to twin boys. They were named Tshisekedi Stanford Khama and Anthony Khama. Then came grief. Tshisekedi Khama died in London on the 10th of June 1959. He was laid to rest in Sarawe. Seretse had returned home. He had given up his title. He had given up the throne, but he had not let go of the future of his people. If you are discovering stories like this for the first time, subscribe to African Profiles. A new story comes every week. Just hit subscribe. Do not miss. Seretse and Ruth returned to Sarawe in 1956. He chose to live quietly. He became a farmer. He raised cattle and managed his land. But the years in exile had not been wasted. Seretse had studied, observed, and thought deeply. He had developed a political mind that was clear and patient. Beginning in 1957, he quietly began to take part in government discussions. He pushed for the creation of a legislative council. In 1958, Seretse spoke at a joint advisory council meeting. The council was made up of traditional chiefs and members of the white settler community. Many of them believed Botswanaland should join the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. That federation was controlled by white minority governments. Seretse disagreed. He said the people of Botswanaland needed their own path. They did not belong to South Africa. They did not belong to any federation. They belonged to themselves. That statement laid the foundation for everything that followed. In 1960, Seretse was diagnosed with diabetes. This condition will stay with him for the rest of his life. But he did not stop. He moved forward. In 1962, Seretse Khama founded the Botswana Democratic Party. The goal was simple and powerful: to build a non-racial independent republic. The people responded with great enthusiasm. Seretse had given up the chieftainship, but he had become the voice of a nation. The first general elections were held in 1965. The Botswana Democratic Party won a clear victory. Seretse Khama was appointed the first prime minister. On the 30th of September 1966, Botswanaland became the Republic of Botswana. On that same day, Seretse Khama became the first president. This was the same man exiled by the British government, the same man whose marriage was used against him, the same man told to give up his throne. Now he stood before the world as the elected leader of a free nation. In a recognition of his service and character, Queen Elizabeth II named him a knight commander. He became Sir Seretse Khama. And then, just 1 year after independence, something happened beneath the ground of Botswana that nobody had expected. Something that would change everything. The new country had almost nothing. At independence, the main resource was livestock. The beef industry was the starting point for the economy. But in 1967, diamonds were discovered at Orapa. Orapa is located roughly 400 kilometers from Gaborone. The discovery was made inside a kimberlite pipe. It became one of the largest diamond mines in the world. Two more major mines were opened in the years that followed. By the 1980s, Botswana was the largest producer of diamonds in the world. Seretse made a choice that would define the country. He chose to use the wealth of a nation for the people. He invested heavily in infrastructure, roads, water system, and public buildings were built. This connected the country and gave people better lives. He invested in healthcare. Hospitals and clinics were built across the country. He invested in education. Schools were opened. He invested in education. Schools were opened. A new generation of Botswana could learn and grow. He did not build monuments to himself. He built the things that ordinary people needed. From independence in 1966 to the end of the century, Botswana had one of the fastest economic growth rates in the world. The country went from one of the poorest nations on earth to a middle-income country with strong institutions. Many people of Botswana knew how fortunate they were. The diamonds were discovered after independence, not before. If found under colonial rule, the wells would not have belonged to the people. The timing felt like a gift. Seretse governed with principle. He was surrounded by neighbors who used race as a weapon. South Africa had apartheid. Rhodesia had white minority government. But Seretse held firm to a different vision. He believed in non-racialism. He believed all people deserve equal dignity and rights. In a region of great racial tension, he built a country that stood for something different. He served 4 terms as president. Elections were held every 5 years. Democracy was not just a word in Botswana, it was a practice Seretse took seriously every day. Then the illness returned. While receiving treatment in London, doctors gave him a devastating news. He had been diagnosed with cancer of pancreatitis. The illness was terminal and there was no path to recovery. He made his decision quickly. He went home. On the 13th of July 1980, Sir Seretse Khama passed away. He was 59 years old. The entire country came to a standstill. There was grief in every corner of Botswana. Seretse had not simply been a politician or a president. He had been the person around whom the nation was built. His memorial service was attended by 20,000 people. Heads of state came from across Africa and the world. He was laid to rest in Sarowe in the royal cemetery beside his father, Seretse Khama II. Ruth Khama continued to serve her adopted country. After the passing of her husband, she turned her energy toward charitable work. She became president of the Botswana Red Cross. Ruth Khama passed away on the 22nd of May 2002. She had stood beside her husband throughout every challenge. Their son, Ian Khama, followed in the footsteps of his father. In 2008, Ian Khama became the first president of Botswana. Botswana declared the 1st of July a national public holiday. It is called Sir Seretse Khama Day. It falls on his birthday. It is a day to remember a man who gave everything. The story of Seretse Khama teaches us one thing above all else. Power tried to break him. Exile tried to silence him. Illness tried to stop him. None of it worked, because a man who builds for others cannot be destroyed by those who build for themselves. He took a name that meant the clay that binds, and that is exactly what he was. He bound a people together. He bound a nation together. He built something that outlasted every force that tried to bring him down. Botswana today is a proof that leadership with integrity works, that wealth shared with a people is more powerful than wealth kept by a few. That is the lesson of Sir Seretse Khama. If this story moved you or taught you something new, share it with one person who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories like this one, stories of African leaders who changed history, subscribe to African Profile. A new story comes every week. And next, watch our story on Nelson Mandela, because that story connects directly to the world that shaped Seretse Khama. We will see you in the next video.